Okay, well, we will go ahead and get started. It is October 2nd, 2024, 10:03 a.m. This is the regular meeting of the Electronic Records Working Group. I'll start with our customary roll call, in which I'll name off the voting member as I see them on my Zoom screen, and if you could unmute and indicate your agency. Glenn McAninch.
Present, former KDLA.
Sarah Garrett.
Here, KDLA.
Tracy Burgess.
Here, COT.
Rob Hill.
Here, KDLA.
Jeremy Foster.
Here, Secretary of State's office.
Shamara Jackson.
Here, Lexington Fayette Urban County Government.
Lynn McCroskey.
Here, COT.
And Christopher Thacker.
Here, Office of the Attorney General.
Thank you. With that, we do have a quorum, and I will read off our guests present, all from KDLA. We have Joe Isaac, Catherine Giles, Heath Reynolds, Becca Haldmeyer, and Elena Gollihue. Oh, and Lance Hale. So welcome, everyone. We will go ahead and get started with our first agenda item, which is the approval of the August 7th, 2024 meeting minutes. Those came out with the meeting materials. Did anyone have any comment on the minutes? Right. Hearing none, do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor, please unmute and say aye.
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 And no opposed. So we will, with that, we will approve our August 7th meeting minutes. Moving down to agenda item 2, which is announcements. I'll keep it very brief. One personnel announcement, Lance Hale, who's joining us, has joined our local records branch as the South Central Regional Administrator. So he has been with KDLA for 11 years in the Archive Center, and he has now decided to join the local records branch. So we're very happy to have him. We have one more regional vacancy, which is the Northeast region, which is a new region. They've added an additional region since we last met. So interviews for that are currently underway, but we will have a total of 5 regions. Next, we've had a lot of KDLA staff traveling to conferences. It is that time of year. Myself and I believe 4 other KDLA staff went to St. Louis for the Council of State Archivists conference. It's their first standalone conference, and that was a couple weeks ago. It was very, very helpful. Representatives from most of the other state and territory archives were there, and I got to meet a lot of folks I hadn't met before and participate in a lot of really helpful discussions. And also had some face-to-face time with some vendors, and we were able to get some things rolling to improve our electronic records program. So I will have more about that as these things become concrete and realities. But we also have some staff that just got back from SARC, the Southeast Archives and Records Conference, which is, we're about as north as it gets, and then it goes all the way down to Florida, Louisiana, Alabama, that region. So that's always a really helpful time of year to attend that. So we thankfully had some electronic records representation there. Our own Elena Gollihue attended, so I'm excited to hear about that experience. And lastly, we are in the midst, well, towards the finish line of a large remodeling of KDLA's building. It involves new carpet in all of the carpeted areas, new trim, walls are getting painted, so it's definitely brighter and nicer. I can't even tell you when the original carpet was put down, or the carpet that was being replaced. But our research room was closed. It is now open, and it is a great it is a great preview of what the rest of the building is going to look like. They got the research room done fairly early in the process to have a minimal interruption, and it looks great. So there's a lot of good changes down in our public section. All right. Moving on to agenda item 3. Does anyone have any new business that they would like to discuss this meeting? Okay. I'm going to, Rob did a funny comment. I am going to not really discuss this, but it's going to be on the agenda for next time. I know there's a section for that, but I want to revisit our charter, make sure, and not this meeting, but in January. I want to, if you would, between now and then, please read the charter and take a look at the members list. Those are all on our website, and I can send that out via email, a direct link to those. But I want to look at our membership. I'm really happy with the current state of our membership and would only want to add to that. So we do have a state archivist now. He was unable to attend this meeting. That's why Sarah's filling in for him. But we have one vacant local record spot. I would honestly like to have a little more local government represented in this group, and probably 3 COT members. Tracy's been on board as like either a guest but our current charter only has 2, so he's satisfying that right now with Lynn. But I would actually like 3 COT people and more local government. So we'll just look at the roster, and all our charter really needs to be changed as a majority vote. So before next meeting, I'm going to be looking at the member list and seeing how we could strengthen our group here. But again, no one go anywhere, because I think this current version of the group and any additions we make would make this a lot more useful, and we might have a quorum more often with more people. So, okay, for the purpose of the minutes, David Hatha just joined us. Okay, so that's all I had for new business. We can move right on to agenda item 4, electronic signature record keeping guidelines. And I'll go ahead and share my screen. Okay, can everyone see? So I went through and all of the suggestions from last time we discussed this, I implemented them as suggestions to be looked at in this meeting. I also went through and did some formatting, because I feel like this document is very close to being complete and updated. So as I went through, I changed the italics to simple bold text. So are we okay with that adjustment? Just our headers?
Yes, looks good.
Okay. And I did that for all these because the having it bold and italic made it look a little busy and kind of out of step with our other guidelines. I omitted this because it didn't really add anything, just Kentucky standards for electronic signatures, and then the text. So as I go through these, I'm going to accept the changes. So let's see. Yep, for the purpose of our meeting minutes, Chris Justice has joined us from the State Law Library. Under this portion here, types of electronic technologies, we had a note to link to kits. So I embedded that link in this text right here. So I'll go ahead and accept that one. Our legal framework has changed. Our KCTC representation in our last meeting suggested adding FERPA. So I hope everyone had a chance to look at this when I sent it out. Does anyone have any commentary or any changes that they would make to this write-up I did for the FERPA section? Yes, Glenn.
I think if we're very close to it, we need to put a version date and number on it at the top.
For the entire document?
Right.
Yes. I was hoping to do that. Well, we can do that this meeting. We can add it live. Does anyone have any FERPA related stuff? We added this. I think it strengthens it since we have HIPAA. Are we okay if we go ahead and accept this section I wrote up?
Yes.
Okay, we have our annotated list of resources, our links work, and then I added additional FERPA regulations relating to electronic consent and signature, which is the addition that actually crystallizes the position. And it's really cool because it was done in the early 2000s, but then they recognized the importance and probably future necessity of the e-signature. So that's definitely worth a read. And I used that when I wrote the section above. Are we good with this addition? Just as a source?
Yes. Did you contact any of the agencies to see if they actually used electronic signatures and for FERPA or HIPAA?
I believe it's fairly standard practice. I can, before we finalize this, I can reach out to see exactly how they do it, but that's so that's good. Yeah, if you think that's important to do before we sign off on this, or think we could add some content based on that, we can certainly try that.
I don't guess it's really necessary. I think in adding those, we were kind of making the assumption that some agencies were using it, but as a document going forward, they could start doing it. So I think it's good to have it in there.
Not really understanding how that's a question because those are federal laws and regulations that all agencies have to abide by.
Right. The guidelines are just to remind people of their both federal and state obligations with regard to any particular subject.
Yeah. This final regulations relating to electronic consent and signature, I mean, it pretty well spells out what where'd that legal framework go? The section, it really just crystallizes, protects the privacy and confidentiality of personally identifiable information contained within student records, and finishes spelling out that it is like the use of it, and it's been in use for some time. So I'm wondering if we might circumvent a use case or I don't know. What information, Glenn, would we be able to add from that?
No, I think it's fine as it stands. I was just kind of curious as to, what agencies were doing this and or using that federal document in an electronic signature environment. It's fine that we don't add anything other than what you've already added.
I can reach out to more than one level of school, and that's notwithstanding. I mean, I think this document is almost good to go, but I can still do that for informational purposes, because in my mind, I know someone from public schools, and then I know some university folks, obviously, so we could ask them about how it's actually done in real life, is like some further information. But I think it's fairly standard practice on both levels to have signatures be done digitally. Having
Right.
it get in the school system, I know.
Do we have a university representative?
We do. I don't believe she is with us today.
Okay.
I should note Jenny Link has been attending and filling in for Tammy Satterley of KCTC. Jenny Link is no longer with them, but Tammy will be attending when she can going forward. Okay, well, with these changes, is there anything that our members here would add, or anything you think could be expanded on, or does anyone think it's ready to show to people? I think that way too. So I think the way to do this would be an updated footer that just said, updated 10/2/24 or something like that. And then we can float this out to the advisory and commission when we're able to get that on the agenda. So does that sound good? Okay. All right. So we'll go ahead and I will add that prior to getting it on the agenda for advisory. So thank you all. Let's go ahead and vote to run it up the flagpole. All those in favor, please, of sending this to advisory and commission, please unmute and say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, we will consider that approved. Now the next item on our agenda. I don't think we're going to get away with approving this one. I wish we could. But it's the cloud computing implications and guidelines for, implications and guidelines for records management in Kentucky state government. All right. So I remember discussing this, but for some reason I did not accept these. I went through and changed some stuff, but prior to that, our analyst, Sarah, went through and really slashed out a lot of the old verbiage so we could write it back. So I think last time we even talked about this. Are we okay with getting rid of that first paragraph? Because it's about how it's an emerging technology and now it's everywhere. So we'll go ahead and get rid of that. I would delete definitions and understandings because this is now our intro. If that looks good. Taking out the word often. Okay. I believe this section was taken out, or this statement was taken out because it's no longer the standard practice that all agencies considering use of cloud computing submit an exception request because it is now commonplace. So I will remove that. So this section now, I'm not trying to race through this. Please stop me if you have a comment. I believe this was also taken out because it's simply outmoded, outdated. When you take all of that out, we have kind of a nice little intro. We can look at that more and add some stuff, but just by taking it out, it actually strengthened it. It's just formatting. I see why this was taken out. It's include instructions for determining if state and local government records in a cloud environment are considered or are covered under an existing records retention schedule. So retention like forward document. I don't know if that's where the this belongs. I also think that this is the underlying thesis behind this document and doesn't necessarily need to be a separate step for them. Are we okay with that?
Yeah, Derek, I think we talked about last time taking it out here because it shouldn't be a bullet point, but still addressing retention schedules just later, kind of, in its own paragraph instead of trying to shoe it in here.
Yeah. Also, yeah, in our very short intro, it also references the retention schedule. So we're gonna make sure we drive that point home. So I guess similarly, this is the same thing, F. I'm okay with taking that out here because we're going to have a records management chunk. This green section, as best as I could, I added it later in the process, so y'all might not have had a chance to review it. Glenn submitted this verbiage as a section for this part. Let's see, that's E. This would now be F, but I'll read it aloud. If the creating agency agrees to maintain in electronic format the records designated as permanent by Kentucky, by the
Maybe by the Kentucky, I guess. Yeah. Sorry.
The Kentucky records retention schedule, they should follow archival standards that dictate 3 copies on separate servers be managed, migrated, and checked for integrity. Cloud servers can provide 1 or more of these options as long as they are managed according to archival standards for permanent archival records. And I think that is a good addition. Does anyone have any comments about the verbiage? Part of me wants to drop a link in there to further guidance.
I think my issue with this is it sounds like they could choose to maintain permanent records that could have been physical, and now it's like, oh well, if you want to maintain them electronically, and that's not allowed without an iReadable exemption. So I think it needs to say that if you're talking about born digital permanent records, then it needs to say that.
Yeah.
It also sounds to me like it is empowering the agency itself to choose, like, if the creating agency agrees to maintain the records, and that it's an agreement with the retention scheduling body. So it sort of feels like this language indicates that, oh, you can do it, but you should do more with it. Whereas, I don't know, I don't know how practical this addition is, because how much control do agencies have over these iterating copies, and how much should we get into the weeds with this when they can barely maintain them on a basic level?
Yeah, I don't know what current practice is, but you're right that it should be in the disposition statement, whether or not they're keeping a permanent record. And that's determined by their desire, willingness, and whether it passes in the schedule. So I don't know how you fully wrap that up into this particular agrees. I had about 3 different words that I was using about in place of agrees. So maybe you want to say if the schedule indicates that an agency is retaining a permanent record internally,
yeah, or if it's agency policy to maintain those records electronically, then they must be maintained in the appropriate archival fashion. And then I would link to a resource that explains those guidelines, because while this is a guideline document, I do feel like maybe getting too into it in the document is a distraction.
Yeah, my instinct is to link to another document on digital preservation.
Yeah, I think there's no way, like, besides referencing something that is already standardized and already, you know, what they're supposed to be doing. You can't really do that in this document, I don't think.
I wonder if the one that is cited at the end, the guidelines are based on Mark Conrad's distributed computing, cloud computing, and other buzzwords. Might be the reference to put in here again, or I haven't read that document recently, but I do know Mark and his work. Unless you have something else that's more local in nature, something on the KDLA website or something.
Yeah, I will look into that and see what the best method is. We're working on our documentation, our internal documentation, and guidelines that are just KDLA authored and not working group authored. But there may be something, if not on the website right now, something that could be on the web page about this sort of consideration for preservation and cloud computing. I think we could. So we're dealing with two different things. We've got Born Digital permanent and copies that they choose to manage digitally. And I think having both of them in the same bullet point or letter is a lot. So if we add any additional stuff, maybe have one for permanent, one for non-permanent, just to help the reader. Or since we're really focusing on the storing records in this environment, we could focus more on adhering to digital preservation standards and records management standards, and just linking to the document. So I'm going to leave this as is for now, and we can workshop it. I'll see what we have to link, and we have various best practice docs that are in different stages of development. So I'll try and get that done if it's not already done to share here.
Hey, Derek, while you're on that, can you, it says of these a couple different times. Can you just take that out? It's for some reason bothered me. Thanks, that was so much better.
I too thought it was a bit wordy, but I wrote it, so I didn't know how to change it.
And yes, this is the outro, the last bit, and I agree it needs rewritten, the conclusion, so we will rewrite that and update these. So we got a lot more done on our electronics signature document than this, but this one's well on its way, I think. We can either look at the example down here at the bottom, the distributed cloud computing document, and quote it directly would be handy. But either way, I think we're on our way here. I want to see what other documents we have that we could potentially link, but when we meet next meeting, I'll have looked into it and either used the one that this is based on or a KDLA authored document, or both. So any other comments on the cloud computing document? Okay. You also have to write that conclusion, so I'll have something ready by next meeting. So if there's no further discussion, I'll go ahead and stop sharing my screen. All right. So moving on to agenda item 6 is agenda recommendations for next time. For next meeting, I for sure want to talk about our charter and membership. And then so that will be on the next agenda. Does anyone have anything else that they'd like to discuss early on in the new year? Because the next one is going to be in January already.
Happy holidays.
Well, yes. Hopefully we've all had a happy holiday by the time we get back together. One thing I want, if we do meet in January, the first Wednesday of that month is the 1st. So that isn't going to work. Would we be okay with moving it back a week to the 8th? Do you think we'd all be back by then and could probably meet then? Because I'll get that on the calendar right away if we want to try and have a January meeting. Okay. Well, I'll put it out there, and if enough people can come, we'll do it.
That's court week for us, so it might be a little bit hectic in the library.
We'll
It's not enough to move the meeting, but if you want to take it into consideration.
we'll take that into consideration because it's still very up in
We
the air.
obviously have meetings during court week.
Yeah. So we'll look at that. I'm gonna try the 8th to see if enough people can join, but we could move it back even further, but then we'd run into the next meeting, not having time to do enough between them. We'll see. Chris, I want to thank you for your comment that your write-up you did in the comments. I'm going to copy this out of there immediately and save it. Okay. Well, if there are no other agenda recommendations, do we have a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Seconded.
All right. Well, I hope everyone has we won't vote. We don't need to vote on adjourn. But I hope everyone has a wonderful holiday break. We have several in between now and our next meeting. So please enjoy. And I'm going to be looking into some things for the new year. So I once again feel really good about this configuration of the group and hope you can continue attending. So thank you, and we'll go ahead and adjourn.